Thank you so much for tuning into my show. William Wallis for America. With me today in studio is somebody that's going to help me prove, like I've been doing all along, or trying to do, I think I have been doing all along, tying freedom, liberty to not just something that we take for granted, but something that was endowed to us by our Creator, something that we take for granted, but more importantly, it's something that we're losing in America because not enough people are trying to protect it, respect it, and in many ways are ignoring the fact that it was endowed to us by our Creator. And this is somebody here with me who's going to discuss that and give us some proof that freedom and liberty was endowed to us by our Creator. But don't think this is going where you think it's going. We have a lot of other political directions that this is going to, not just spiritual. You're going to love this one. With me in studio, Gary Michael Voris. Gary, thank you so much for being on there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. I just want to tell you before I get going that you deserve a hats off. Thank you for everything you're doing to help preserve Western civilization, because when it boils down to it, that's exactly what we're all involved in here, not just winning an election.
I receive that, and I appreciate you for that, because I tell you, a lot of people don't realize when you look at Europe and other countries, they don't have the amount of freedom that we started out with. And all too often, I think America is losing sight of that beauty, if you will. Gary, let's talk about a little bit about your background, where, your background, how you got started in the freedom liberty movement, what kind of, injected that passion in your veins to get started in what you're doing.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it boils down to injustice. Everybody sort of has, well, at least I hope they do, have some sort of buttons somewhere that if you push them, the person responds. And for me, that button is injustice. And if we are to accept the truth that, and it's not a debatable truth, it's a truth that God made us for himself and gave us freedom and liberty to choose him. It's not freedom to do whatever you want. It's freedom for him, so that we can choose him as our final destiny. When that gets ignored by people, governments, particularly governments, but even individuals, that you now become an object of injustice from them, by them, that should ignite something in you. So we have rights. Every human being has certain rights given to us by God. Some of them are enumerated there in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution: life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. I mean, liberty, liber, freedom. But there comes you're given life by God to do what? Choose him. And the pursuit of happiness is that. It's not this, I'm going to have 2 homes and a vacation home and a boat. And I mean, yes, those are all fine. They certainly aren't guarantors of happiness by any stretch. Does money make material life more easily lived? Yeah, for the most part, probably. But there's more to us than just material beings. We're spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. As a priest,
that's actually, I actually really like the way that you say that. We're spiritual beings having a human experience, and I like the fact that you brought up. All too often we forget that our rights are not only endowed to us by our Creator, but I've said before, and I love that you're saying it again right now from your own mouth, that God gave us freedom not because he wants to see what kind of stupid things that we would do as humans, although I'm sure, somewhere up in heaven, we're entertainment for the angels, right? Some reality show, but he gave us that freedom so we would have the decision to choose him, because choice is important, I believe, in our not only now life, in our human experience, but in our eternal life. And when we look at that, I believe that is the reason why here on earth, we have to respect where our freedom and liberty actually came from. So what got you started in the freedom and liberty? What got you started? What was the the catalyst that made you say, that propelled you into where you are now?
I'm not sure that it was. I'm not sure that I could really sort of identify one, ta-da moment. It's always just been, for your audience's sake, I was born and baptized, Catholic, and raised in, pretty solid, raised with a pretty solid understanding of the faith. And from that sort of theological and philosophical underpinning, it just sort of spilled over into other things, culture, politics, the whole bit. So it became clear to me when I was relatively young, my sophomore year at Notre Dame, I actually worked on Reagan's campaign, 1980 campaign.
Oh, wow, cool.
So I was, on campus. I mean, it wasn't any bigwig or anything. It was
Right.
just, but it was funny. Just, he just sort of seemed to touch on spiritual realities.
Right.
Patriotism is a spiritual reality. It's a bit amorphous, but it's why I think you start to see, because the Democrats are anti-spiritual. They're all about the material world.
Right.
That's it, and then controlling everybody in that material world.
And they
They're anti
control with our tax dollars.
with your tax dollars, all the laws, policies, the whole bit. They're anti-human, and that's why they can sit there and present. When you boil down, all this has a trickle down effect. Their starting philosophy is anti-God, anti-human, anti-life, anti-American. That's their big, their cloud,
Right.
as Kamala would say, up there, their cloud. And as all that rain starts to come down from that cloud, it's acid rain, because it causes policies to be presented and then enacted into law that deny God, deny
Right.
the sacredness of humanity, and you'll never see American flags unless it's for pure propaganda. You'll never see American flags as part and parcel of anything democratic. Crap, you'll see communist flags before you'll see American flags. And that's why they kind of damn on social media American flags. And you'll see all kinds of tweets about it. I'm drilling way down to make the point that if it goes down that far, that if you have an American flag on your vehicle, for example, that you get trashed by social media, communist Democrats for flying the American flag in America. So if it's gotten that bad that you can't even brandish, the stars and stripes, there's a hell of a lot of problems going on.
And I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of people that would have the opinion that you're wrong, that they'll say, oh, they're not, they love the American, they love this country, they love the flag, they fly the flag. How wrong is that? So let's just play devil's advocate for 1 second and say, well, the proof that would prove you right, Gary, is that they keep trying to replace our flag with the rainbow flag. Maybe they don't dislike the American flag, but they are very happy to prominently display the pride flag, the rainbow flag in government, on government buildings, military bases all over the place, and
Sure.
and have it as, and they're also replacing other flags,
Yep.
with other symbols of their beliefs
Well,
over.
go a step further if you want. I mean, not only a question of just replacing or putting, a gay pride flag or whatever up beside, or taking down the American flag for a day or a month and putting that up. It's much further than that. People who are on the Democratic side, that philosophy, I'm not talking about people who are necessarily
I mean, just
registered voters.
recently they took an American flag down and put up a Palestinian flag.
Sure. And then what did they do with the American flag? They burned it. They stepped on it. They did
Right.
everything, as far as I know, did everything except defecate on it.
Right.
These are not the actions of people who are patriotic, who are patriots, who believe in patriotism. Can you be upset with your country about this, that, or the other? Sure. Can you work, therefore, then to change things? Do you have the freedom, to come back to freedom? Do you have the freedom in America to change things for the good, for the common good, to fight, as fight for the common good? Yeah, you do. But these people don't want you having that freedom. They're like these, giant alligators. It might look okay for a moment, but the moment they get near their prey, they go whoop, and completely devour it. That's what these people are about. I mean, how many times do we have to look at a communist regime throughout history and say, well, last 100 plus years, and say, this is what they're about. They're about crushing all opposition. They cheat their way into power, and then they kill off their opposition to maintain power. And it's stunning to me, really, it's stunning to me, the number of people who style themselves as conservatives, or maybe like patriots with a small p, who just don't seem to be motivated by this. Do you realize that there are innocent victims who will be treated unjustly, who will be mowed down by that regime? They will be mowed down. You don't think you're not going to prison? And you have the J6 thing. That's a trumped up charge. Trumped up charge. They can, as the Supreme Court said, I mean, that's the application of that's 1546, I think it is, or 1526, whichever section it was, is not to be applied the way it was applied by Jack Smith and company. When you get to a certain point and the scales have tipped enough, they don't need a law. They don't need a law. All they need is just raw power. And that's what this election is about. I mean, when you have somebody like Elon Musk, who's an agnostic, Elon Musk understands on some level the spiritual nature of this, that the qualities that Western civilization is being has come down to: patriotism, free speech, liberty, censorship is wrong, all of these kinds of things. He's skimming the surface, but he's on the right ocean. Underneath that ocean are straight up Christian principles of liberty, freedom, patriotism, and granted, that's not his specific background, being born and raised in South Africa and everything. But he's got a great accent, by the way.
Right. You don't have to
get it. He intuitively gets it. He probably can't articulate it like this, but he gets it.
You don't have to be so faith-filled, if you will, that you're injecting the name, Jesus's name and God and faith and singing praises all the time, to be able to acknowledge that this world is bigger than us. And even if you don't think that there's a creator of this eternal universe, you can still say, you know what? I acknowledge that there's something else in this universe that might be a little bit more powerful than me.
Sure.
To be able to say, hey, maybe there's something to not only that we're having a human experience here, but that we've got all this freedom. And why? Why do we have all this freedom? And we've talked about that before. This. I simply believe that there's proof that freedom is endowed to us by our Creator, simply because if He didn't want us to be free, we would be born in a cage. We'd be born at the mercy of something greater than us. We would be born we would be born in such a way, or we be born or put on this earth in such a way that we would not be able to have any abilities to do anything else other than just exist. And that is, the biggest lack of freedom ever, is not to be able to have the knowledge, the power, or the ability to be greater than just a mere existence.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, every person possesses natural virtue, as in the sense that it comes with us as part of our human nature. So, Hitler liked his dog, Blondie. It's a natural virtue to connect with an animal on some level. Of course, he gave him cyanide at the end and killed him. But, did he like a child? Did he see a puppy and smile? Could Kamala Harris be moved for a moment driving through San Francisco and, hand some homeless guy that she helped put there $5 to go get a burger or something? Yes, we all have natural virtue. There's no such thing as a completely evil being devoid of all virtue, that person doesn't exist. Those natural virtues now become, do you operate sort of in conjunction with them as you exercise your free will, or do you operate mostly against them when it comes to the exercise of your free will? When you look at somebody like Donald Trump or Elon, for example, who just came out today, they've got 1 billion views on that interview on X 2 nights ago, 1 billion views. When they're exercising and making their choices, because this is what they're doing, this is better than that. It's better to let Americans prosper through their own entrepreneurship and whatever than not. These are all choices, and they come down to policies. I mean, he's not running for, Trump's not running for philosopher in chief. He's running for president. So, but he's still operating on those same principles. Again, he probably, and Elon probably, haven't really sat and thought in philosophical terms about their social, cultural, and political choices that they prefer. But why do they prefer them? Because their natural virtue that God instilled in them, in every one of us, says those are better than that. This is freedom. This is not. We are created for freedom, created with freedom for God. The exercise of natural virtue, even by an agnostic, is a movement toward the good, and the ultimate good, the highest good, of course, is God. That's why we have these natural virtues in us. It's why God created them with us. I will write my law on your hearts. That's the natural virtue that he's talking about. It's not sufficient for salvation, but it's the movement toward the supernatural virtues, which St. Paul tells us are faith, hope, and charity. But you have to move. You got to move somewhere.
It's on your conscience.
Somewhere. Yeah, it's your conscience.
It's on your conscience.
Where do you somebody like Kamala Harris and the Democrats and Tim Walz and all these people? You're like, you people operate, in opposition to your natural virtue. Natural virtue inclines to freedom. It inclines to liberty, used for the proper ends. Your choices, free will choices, are to move against those natural virtues. Well, let's crush them in other people as well. That's evil.
Let me correct you on that. They're using their freedom for themselves. They're using their God-given freedom for themselves. They're just using it they're not using it for other people's freedoms. Correct. And that is, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just kind of using the opportunity to make the point, that they use their freedom to take away others' freedom to empower themselves and the people that adhere to their ideologies. Whereas Republicans, conservative-minded, Christian-minded, freedom-loving individuals who love freedom and respect that freedom was endowed to us by our Creator, they believe in not only the preservation of freedom, but the spread of freedom, the prosperity of that comes with giving others all the freedom that they can get. Knowing that, Gary, where do you believe that freedom is either most under attack in America, or where we are losing the most freedom in America?
Well, that's kind of a two-sided coin. By the way, following up on that, just a little injection. Philosophically, I would just challenge any of your listeners to reflect for one moment. Philosophically, what is the difference between Kamala and King Herod? They kill children for the advancement of their own power. Philosophically, what's the difference? Yeah, their circumstances are different, 2,000 years apart and different cultures and all that. But their philosophy is, I want to hold on to power. And if I have to crawl over the bodies of dead children to do it, I'm going to do it. Where are we losing our freedom?
That's pretty strict. What children do you say are being killed by Kamala Harris?
Well, probably the million a year that are aborted in the United States. Herod didn't go and drive swords and lances into the children. He gave the order and supported it through his policy. Okay, well, so just speed up 2,000 years, increase the technology, corrupt people's minds. I mean, what would have to have
How
been like
how
crazy
about
in those soldiers' heads to ride into Bethlehem and rip, 1-year-old infants out of their mother's arms and drive swords into them? I mean, what the hell is wrong with those guys? Well,
well
that same thing happens today, every day in America, a million times a year. Just
let's
circumstances.
continue with that analogy at the border.
Sure. Sure.
But because she's the border czar, and
Yeah.
I don't know how many countless children are being killed at the border, and as a result of the open border, we have children that are being sex trafficked. They're being used as for body parts. They're being used as sex slaves, which is of course in some cases worse than death. Those children are being killed at the hands of her bad policies. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. She's not the border czar, was she? Oh,
I,
yes,
I was going to
she
correct you.
is the borders.
She's not the border czar. Come on.
Well, what's be interesting is, she was the border czar. Now she's not. Now she never was the border czar. But if right close to the election they say immigration is down, border crossings are down, she'll raise her hand and say, "That's because I'm the border czar."
Look at the great job I've done.
Yeah, look at the great job I've done lowering as the borders are. So freedom and liberty. Back to what we were talking. Back to your answer.
I think there's two sides, like where is under the greatest attack, and where are we losing it? One side of that coin is censorship, and you see this great. It's not even really the military-industrial complex; it's the censorship complex now of denying people access. Well, denying them the freedom to go access the truth. And they label truth misinformation. So to cut somebody's access off by rearranging how things pop up on Google or don't pop up on Google, for example, a Google search, going through and completely erasing any reference to her as the border czar, for example, anything like that. So to cut people's access off denies them the freedom to go look for the truth. On the other hand, you also have the great corporate mega media machine, and not just CNN and fake news and all that. Certainly, they're part of it, but themes that are constantly pursued in the entertainment business, entertainment media. There's media is a big title. Entertainment media, news media, information media, all of these things, going into a Wikipedia article,
hit piece media.
Yeah. So, and for the most part, most of social media as well. So to censor somebody's ability to say the truth and deny somebody else's ability to access the truth, that's what freedom is. Freedom is given to us. It orients us towards the truth. It's why we have it. I mean, the ultimate truth is God. So he gives that to us, freedom, free will to arrive at him. Yeah, we make all kinds of stupid choices and everything most of our lives and blah, blah, blah. But when you cut off somebody's access and you try to corrupt their intellects, because that's really what's going on here.
Right.
You try to, what happened in the Garden of Eden? Before the serpent comes in, you've got intellect controlling the passions, and the passions properly feeding the intellect. You need to get up and do stuff, and it's a good thing to do, and all of that. But after the fall, it went like this, and now the intellect has become subordinate to the passions, and the whole goal of living a salvation life is to take that and turn it back to what it originally was. So when your intellect is invaded by propaganda, pushed heavily by the media industry, news, entertainment, movies, TV shows, music, everything, and your access to try to get information is also cut off, well, your dignity as a human being is being trampled on. And they don't care. And that's why I say they're anti-human. They have no reference to God. They have no reference to our anthropology, our spiritual and material anthropology as human beings. It's why they kill 1 million children in the womb, because they don't give a damn. Because to them, they're not human, or they're human that doesn't matter, probably more that. And they simply don't care. They're anti-God, they're anti-human, they're anti-life. And because there is a large portion of America that does believe those things, then they are opposed to that as well, which is why they'll crap on the American flag, burn it, yell at you if you got an American flag on your truck, call you crazies, domestic terrorists, and the whole bit.
Did you listen to my show last night?
I did not. Sorry.
No, I know you did. I'm not putting you on the spot. It's because I talked about exactly this on my show last night. That we're controlled by narrative driven, almost like algorithms. We're tied to our personal devices. That drag us into these algorithms, and we only watch what what's put in front of us that we like or that we stick to. And I always tell people, break away from those reality algorithms, those algorithms that are coming to us from exterior forces, if you will. Because I always encourage my right-wing friends, watch some left-wing media, like jump out of those narratives, and you will see what the other side is saying. Not that you should be informed that way or adhere to it, but so that way you can see how they're thinking. Just like I want them to do the same with the right wing. Not that I'm trying to get anybody to change their sides, but when everybody starts listening to all the facts, we'll realize that we actually have more in common with the truth, because of what you said, that God wrote truth on our hearts. Mm-hmm. Our conscience will tell us what's true and what's not, instead of those algorithms that we're receiving, draped in narratives that are being fed to us for the purpose of control, instead of perpetuating freedom and liberty and letting that run through our veins instead. And Absolutely. so that's kind of how I say that, because look, I don't agree with the left, but I'll watch, CNN, MSNBC, not regularly, but I'll watch it because, when you hear what they're saying, it helps the truth come out even more sometimes, in my opinion. And sometimes the truth isn't, and sometimes the truth isn't from my side. Sometimes you see how much we're being swayed from the truth, because the far right and the far left doesn't want us to know truth. They want us to be embedded and indoctrinated with the narratives. And when we cut out those algorithms out of our head, more of us will come together on the truth that God wrote on our hearts.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree with that more. Truth is singular. There's no such thing as your version or my version of truth. Those are called opinions, and they correspond to the truth, or they don't, or they approach it, or they depart from it here and there. But there's only one truth. Truth is an objective reality, and we are wired for that. I mean, how many people, times do you see, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, they want to know the truth. Why is the grass green? Why is the sky blue? Or those incessant questions of everything. Why this? How? Why? Right. Because we're wired to want to know the truth. We want answers. Nobody walks up to a friend and says, "Hey, lie to me." Nobody says that. They say, "Tell me the truth." No, well, maybe not. Well, I don't really think I want to hear the truth. And I mean, because it's an objective reality.
Well, sometimes there's some people who don't want to know the truth, because someone disagree with you a little bit, but only enough to make this.
Sorry, but let me correct that for a second. I don't mean that there aren't people who don't want to know the truth. I'm saying nobody walks up to you and says, "Hey, lie to me." They may say, "I don't want to hear the truth right now," but nobody wants to be lied to, because you don't have any basis. You have nowhere to sort of plug into that to make decisions about your life.
When people are seeking
$500 million, give me $500 million for it. Well, nobody wants to be lied to. about something, and because people make their decisions based on information or lack
When
thereof.
when people are seeking information or they're seeking the truth, they don't want to be lied to. And I'm only being not argumentative, but differing with you a little bit to make this point. I
Hmm.
always say that I find that there are many Americans that would rather believe a small lie because it's easier to digest that small lie than it
Sure.
is a bigger truth. For some
Absolutely.
people, the truth is just unimaginable. It's out of the narratives. It's out of the algorithms that they've been fed for so long, and they go, wow, I can't handle that I can't handle the thought that our elections might be getting tampered with. I would
Right.
rather believe that our machines are safe, sound, secure. Go back to sleep.
No, absolutely. It's red pill, blue pill. It's the colonel on the on the stand and a few good men. You can't handle the truth.
Speaking
I mean,
about elections, let's switch to election for a few minutes.
sure.
I always like to ask this question in these recent interviews: is how do you think that Donald Trump can increase his base? Obviously we lean right in this conversation,
Sure.
but I think that we've talked about Kamala Harris and we talked about how she's trying to increase her base, lies, deception, that kind of thing. How
Yeah.
can Donald Trump increase his base?
He's in the rare position of having been president already. He can point to his record and just remind people, and he's actually on fertile ground here because an overwhelming number, it's like 67% or something like that, of the American electorate already believe, rightfully and truthfully, corresponding to the reality, that economically they were better off under Donald Trump. That's it. I mean, so I think he has to stress that here is my record as president. This isn't things I'm going to do. This is things I've already done and I will repeat. So you need to look at the Democratic
Right.
policies and plans and whatever and say, disaster, let's bookend them with what I did and what I will repeat. And you have no reason to believe me that I'm not going to do the same things I've already said I'm going to do because I've done them before.
Right.
So let's talk about joblessness. Let's talk about minority owned businesses increasing. Let's talk about single women job opportunities and entrepreneurship opportunities, small business opportunities. Let's talk about the increase in education, the lowering of crime, the practically negligible inflation rate. Let's talk about $1.73 gas. I mean, he's got so many things. I think all he has to do is simply remind people of this. He's got, I mean, yeah, there's 82 days or whatever to the election. But early voting starts in a month. I mean, the election now is, it's a 60-day.
You mean election season starts in a month?
Yeah, election season starts in a month, and people are going to be voting over 60 days, which I think is just ridiculous. But it's just ripe for cheating and everything else, as we saw before.
Well, there was an article out in Politico yesterday where a convention of hackers, at a convention in Vegas have proven that they can hack into the machines, that they are vulnerable, but there's not enough time to fix the problem before the election. Oh, really? Imagine that if so I've asked you a question that I've been asking a lot of people, but something comes to my mind after I asked you this question, a new question, if you will. I asked you on a positive note, how can Trump increase his base? But on a flip side, something comes to my mind. Do you think that there is a group of people that Trump is not able to increase his base in? Maybe,
Yes.
How can we eliminate that? How can we keep that, base from voting? What is there a group of people that you think might fall into that category?
Sure. I don't think he's going to get very far at all. And I think JD Vance was 100% spot on with the cat lady crowd. I think that's correct. I think that's a correct observation. It's precisely because he was directly over the target, JD, that the media went ballistic. If you were to take, let me throw a couple statistics at you here, so you know, it's, so you and the audience have the, you know, the finger on the pulse here. Single, unmarried, childless women between the ages of 25 and 40 are now 22%. Up until through the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even into the 90s, that number had stayed relatively consistent at about 6%. Now 22% of all females are childless, unmarried. So
wow,
there's the number, 1 out of every 5, between 1 out of every 5 and 1 out of every 4. Used to be 6%. That's a 4-time multiple, 400% increase in those numbers. Kamala Harris is one of them. She wasn't married. She's never had children. She wasn't married until she was 49. So she's one of them. Now, take a look at that crowd. Of that crowd, 54% identify as having emotional problems, emotionally ill. When you think about that,
that's a lot.
There is where the election is right there. It's cat ladies who, for whatever reason, they eschew marriage. They, you know, have a cat. They eschew marriage. They don't either like children, want children, have aborted their children. I think, yeah, the vast majority of them are never going to see things Trump's way, the Republican way, a theological, philosophical way. But I do think there's a little inroad they could make here that the good guys could make there. And it's to speak to those people's emotional pain. How did they get here? How did they arrive at a point in their lives where they're lonely, bitchy, depressed, on some sort of mood enhancing drug, childless? Well, how did they get there? Were they victims of rape? That needs to be spoken to. Were they victims of abuse at home? That needs to be spoken to. Is there a, you know, and this is really the sort of Christian godly response to this. It's not just, hey, you're a political crowd over here and let's see what we can do to kind of ramp down the road or whatever. It's speak to somebody from the heart and say, I understand where your policies or your policy leanings or your political leanings, I know why they go that way, you know, but you're angry and you have a right to be angry. What happened to you? You're a child of God. What happened to you? Whether you accept that you're a child of God or not isn't the point. The truth is you are. What happened to you? Who did something to you? You know, what's the source of the pain that is so horrible to you? You don't want to face it, so you're going to take it out on the electorate and get them to vote that you're okay. Like you need some sort of affirmation in your illness. I think if Trump gave a speech like that, I think he would bring the house down on Kamala, and because that's what they have put there. They are all in on getting emotionally ill people to vote for them, period. You blow up that house and you have a landslide. And it's not just a landslide, it's to actually begin treating and talking about these things. How many of those women over there murdered their children because emotionally they thought they were blackmailed into it? Where's the system in place to encourage a terrified single mom, or mom to, well, she's mom because she's pregnant, but where's the system in place to help her, encourage her to have that child? There are bits and pieces of that all over the place. Where's the big national government policy for it?
I like where you're touching on with that, because I've said something very similar in a lot of my shows. And this might sound like I'm not pro-life. I am pro-life, but I don't necessarily think that the way to end abortion or slow down abortions or even save babies for that matter is to end abortion
I
or
mean,
take away a woman's right to
things,
choose. What's
two
that?
things, two things can be true at the same time.
Right.
Stop the bleeding, literally, stop the bleeding, and encourage life.
Well, that
Encourage, I don't mean giving birth. That's what you do by stopping the bleeding. Once the baby's born, what about this? What about the other? I mean, half of America is on some sort of government dole. And it's been instituted in the Great Society War of Lyndon Johnson. It's been instituted in order to create a Democratic voter base. And as Trump said in 2016, talking largely to African American population, but not exclusively, vote for me. What the hell do you got to lose at this point? That's true. There's a truth there. Again, it's that truth coming again from his natural virtue to look at a population that's been decimated, more than decimated, because that means 10%. I mean, we're talking about 50%.
Well, I always say that we could save more babies if, and again, you're touching on the direction where I was going with this is, if we could save more babies, if we made families great again, so to speak, if we did things to rebuild the family and we did things that promoted adoption, we did things that took care of, like you said, women that have been raped, women that have been abused, if our government and we as a society promoted more assistance for women, that were in those situations, offered more support, we would encourage life and women would be making decisions more to save their child than to abort their child. If we offered more things to be able to do that, that stopgap measure. Now it's, if you have your child, here's financial aid. What do we do to help the women out in the interim that want to have a child, adoption, whatever the case may be? There's ways to encourage life without taking away a woman's right to choose. And I think that we bring more people together from the pro-choice side over with us to fight for ways to take care of women in a better way and promote adoption. And that's just a simple stepping stone for me. That's not the end all be all necessarily, because I am pro-life, but I think it helps out our society in the future.
Well, I mean, it's absolutely a missing ingredient. I mean, where most of these efforts that we're both speaking of, helping the woman and all that, most of these things are little private grassroots efforts, usually done by some church group of some sort, or even if it's not an official church group, it's people who go to church. There's a big presence of that in the Catholic world. The crisis pregnancy centers, and then the helping after the baby is born centers, that sort of thing. Where's the government aid for that? You hand Planned Parenthood $500 million a year, who's making blood money, chopping up babies and selling their pieces. They don't need $500 million a year. They only need to be shut down. But talking about just the money part of it, take that money away from them and give it to pro-life pregnancy centers. Give it to, and beyond just the question of abortion, give it to, mental health associations that can talk about even some of the more root issues here. Why would a woman feel like she has to just sort of, get on her back and lay there time after time after time because of her lack of self-worth? Why would she be doing that? What message was instilled in her as being young? You're looking at these, what was that first rally that Kamala, well, it wasn't her rally, it was a concert, but she, used it as a photo op. Those women up there on that, Meg the Stallion or whatever the hell her name is, I'm just up there twerking, shaking everything around and the whole bit. I mean, what kind of message is that sending to, a 12-year-old girl? Really? That girl has no father. I mean, this is the reality. That girl has no father. She's probably, probably has a mother who's probably 16 or 17 years older than her. Where's the mental health treatment with all of this? Where's the emotional health treatment with all of this? Where's the interaction from?
Because I think what happens is the narratives that are out there right now from the wrong side, say that, you're too far right and you're instilling, Christianity, you're
You're damn
belittling,
right you are.
you're belittling somebody, and that to them is more evil than the actual action itself.
Yeah.
But Gary, I know we're gonna be wrapping up here in just a second, and I gotta tell you, not only have I enjoyed our conversation, but I want to give you an opportunity that if you think there's something that a message you'd like to get out, something that you're working on currently that you want others to get behind you on, I want you to have that, take this time to be able to let that out. I know you have Souls and Liberty, and
Mhm.
and let's explain what that is, and let's kind of go in some detail on that.
Sure. Okay. Well, Souls and Liberty is an outfit that is dedicated to. It's an ecumenical effort, Catholics and Protestants. I'm Catholic. There's Protestant backers and that sort of thing. One of our contributors isn't Catholic, but is very Catholic minded, I would suppose. Great guy. We look at the disaster of what is essentially the collapse of Western civilization, and understand that what has happened on the surface was really an effort to get to the underpinnings of Western civilization, which is all of these things we're talking about: supernatural virtue, the correct anthropology of man, that our freedoms exist, our liberty, souls and liberty. That's who we are as human beings. We have souls and we have liberty here in the material world. You exercise your liberty, your freedom in the material world, and you do it for the benefit of your souls and liberty. And that influences everything, who you vote for, why you vote for them, all that sort of thing, in the body politic. But it also influences everything else in your life. How do you see yourself? Do you see yourself as a child of God, given freedom, given liberty, in order to reach for him and ultimately end with him in eternity? Is that your North Star? If it's your North Star, your entire life will correspond to it, not perfectly, but your movements, the thrust of your movements will be that. If that's not your North Star, frankly, what the hell is? I mean, that's a good question. What's the other side of that coin? Well, that other side of that coin is you just make up your own truth. That's stupid, intellectually bereft. Well, you've got your truth and I've got my truth. No, you don't. That's your opinion. It's wrong.
One truth.
One truth. So when this effort is an ecumenical effort of Catholics, Protestants, men and women of goodwill who may not identify theologically as go to mass on Sunday Catholic, or go to church on Wednesday night Baptist or something like that, but do understand that, as you said, there are many of these things you can sort of pull together, and because that's how God made us. And if you understand, even on the natural, again, there's an agnostic who runs a big social media platform called X who gets this.
Exactly.
Elon would be perfect for us for Souls and Liberty. Hey, Elon, if you're listening, here you go. There's a pitch. Help us out. It's the natural virtue that these guys are driven by Satan. They may not realize. I don't think Kamala has a little statue to Baphomet in her room, in her bedroom. She goes and lights incense and stuff each night. Maybe she does. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure she probably doesn't. It's not the point. You don't have to know that you're serving evil in order to serve it. You also, as a matter of fact, you think what you're doing is right. Likewise, you don't have to have a conscious consciousness that you are serving the good when you're following natural virtue. You hope it leads there to a conscious understanding of, oh, this is God. All this stuff comes from God. It'd be wonderful to sit down with Elon and have that kind of conversation with him. You've got all the right things here picked, at least is what they were talking about on the Monday X thing. All those things are correct. Let's talk about why they're correct. It's not just a hunch. There's a reason, because that's how God made the world, that these things are good in and of themselves. And because of that, they need to be pursued in your soul and with your freedom. And every 4 years or 2 years or whatever it is, also gone into a voting booth and voted on correctly. But in between those elections, lived out as best you can live them out, realizing you're going to stumble and fall. But in the meantime, you don't deny them, even if you don't live them all the time. You don't deny them, and you try to keep living them as best you can.
Well, in between those 4 years, you have there's a lot of community efforts and elections, and a lot of state efforts and elections that
Absolutely.
people can affect change in a positive way using those good values in their local elections and their statewide elections. And it's part of the reason why we have such high taxes and bad policies, is because those are the elections that nobody goes and votes in, and that's when the politicians sneak in all the ugly stuff, you
Yeah, that's
know.
very true.
You
Freedom
know,
ain't free. Freedom ain't free. You got to go
that's right.
you got to commit to the body politic, to your community, local, national, state, everything. And it's part of the cost on an individual level of freedom is staying informed. And when somebody says, I'm not interested in politics, well, then you deserve everything that's going to hit you.
That's right. And they're part of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely they are.
They're more of the problem than the politicians are in some cases, because if we had more of those people on board, we'd have less of the politicians.
Yeah,
Gary,
the indifference, the lukewarmness, that's the root of it. That's what's taken advantage of. If that's removed, there's nothing to take advantage of.
I tell you what, Gary, I can't tell you how thankful and grateful I am to have you on my show today. And I really, truly appreciate your time. And I hope more people go to, what's that?
I said, I appreciate the invite. Very kind of you. Thank you.
Well, I hope that more people go to Souls and Liberty and check it out, soulsandliberty.com, and find out more about it. But most importantly, I hope more people share this episode, because I think that there's not only a lot to learn in this episode that other people would like to hear more about, but I want more people to know about you, Gary, because you've got a really unique twist with your opinions. You present things a little bit harshly at times, but in such a way that I think people need. I think people need to hear harsh sometimes, because all too often we get fed the algorithms that smooth things over or make everything look like it's got a nice little icing on it. And oftentimes we need that slap in the face that you've done, I think, in a very tactful yet informative way. And that's why I say it like that. And I thank you for that. I thank you for the directness, and I thank you for the way you present it. And I appreciate that.
Very kind. Thank you very much. God bless you and all of your viewers as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everybody, please share the show. That's right. We're going to talk soon, Gary. Have a great day. Everybody else, please share the show.
God bless.